Jake looked at the massive Kethmora warrior standing in front of them. The alien was waiting for an answer, but Jake could see more warriors moving through the caves behind him. They were searching for something, and they were doing it with military precision. "What do they want?" Jake whispered to Zara. "The weapon." "They must want the star render," she replied, her voice shaking. "Jake, we have to get out of here. These creatures are death itself. My people's oldest stories say they destroyed entire worlds just to prove they could." The Kethmora warrior in front of them spoke again, this time pointing directly at the hidden room they had discovered. "Sacred place. You opened. You saw a message." Jake realized the alien could understand some of what they were saying. He had to be careful with his words. "We were just mining. Didn't know this place was here." The warrior tilted his head, studying. Jake, with interest, "Human. Yes. Herd of humans. New species. A week run from fights." More Kethmora warriors appeared in the tunnel behind their leader. Jake counted at least 6 of them, all armed with weapons that hummed with energy. Move like a pack of hunters who had cornered their prey. Zara's translation device beeped again. She had left it running to decode more of the ancient message. The new text made her face go pale. "What does it say now?" Jake asked. "It says the Star Render is a weapon that can destroy entire solar systems. It was hidden here by the Kethmora. Before they went into their long sleep, the message says they would return when the weapon was needed again." The lead Kethmora warrior heard this and spoke to his companions in their own language. Jake didn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. They were excited. "You read message? Good," the warrior said to them. "Now you help us find weapon, or you die here." "We don't know where it is," Jake said. "Only found the control room." "You lie." The warriors' weapons began to glow brighter. Humans always lie, always run, always weak. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. He was tired of hearing about how weak humans were supposed to be. Every alien species they had met treated humans like they were children or cowards. "We're not lying," he said, his voice getting harder. "We found the room by accident. We don't know anything about your weapon." One of the other Kethmora warriors said something to their leader. The lead warrior nodded and gestured for his companions to spread out through the caves. "We search. You stay here. Try to run. We hunt you. Kethmora always catch prey." The warriors disappeared into the tunnels, leaving only their leader to watch Jake and Zara. But Jake could hear them moving through the cave system, their footsteps echoing off the crystal walls. They were searching every room, every passage. "Jake, we have to do something," Zara whispered. If they find that weapon, they could use it against our colonies, against Earth." "What do you suggest?" "You said yourself these things are perfect. Killers. My people survive by being smart, not strong. There has to be a way." Jake looked around the tunnel, thinking. The Kethmora were confident, maybe too confident. They thought humans were weak and cowardly. That could be an advantage. "If he used it right, how well do you know these caves?" asked Zara quietly. "I've been mapping them for months." "Why?" "Do any of the passages connect back to the main chamber where we found the control room?" "Yes, there are several routes." "But Jake, what are you thinking?" Before Jake could answer, they heard a shout from deeper in the caves. It's one of the Kethmora. Warriors had found something. The leader guarding them spoke into a device on his armor, then looked at Jake and Zara. "They find weapon chamber. You come now." He gestured with his energy weapon for them to move. As they walked through the tunnels, Jake studied everything around them. The crystal formations, the way the passages connected, the places where the ceiling was lower or higher. They reached a large chamber Jake had never seen before. It was even bigger than the first room, and in the center stood a device that was clearly the Star Render. It looked like a massive crystal surrounded by metal rings that rotated slowly in the air. Energy crackled between the rings and the hole. Thing gave off a feeling of incredible power. The Kethmora warriors were gathered around it, but they seemed to be having a problem. The device wasn't responding to their touch. "Weapon not activate," one of them said to their leader. "Need key. A blah da 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 da." Leader looked at Jake and Zara. "You open first chamber." "F key. I don't have any key," Jake said. "We just touched the control panel. Human lie again." The leader's patience was clearly running out. Show us key or we kill you both. Then we take apart your bodies to find it. Zara was shaking again, but Jake was thinking fast. The Kethmara obviously believed that humans in Veltar were weak. They weren't being careful because they didn't think their prisoners were dangerous. Wait, Jake said. Let me look at the device. Maybe I can figure out how we activated the first one. The leader considered this, then nodded. Try. But no tricks. We watch everything. Jake walked slowly toward the star render, with Zara beside him. As he got closer, he could feel the energy coming from it. The device was definitely active. But it seemed to be waiting for something. He pretended to study the controls while actually looking at the chamber around them. There were several tunnel entrances, and the ceiling had crystal formations that looked unstable. If those crystals fell, they could block the entrances. I think I need to touch the center crystal, he said loudly, making sure all the Kethmara could hear him as he reached toward the device. He whispered to Zara, when I give the signal, run for the tunnel on the left. It leads back to the surface. What about you? Don't worry about me. Just get to the communication array and warn. Our people? The Kethmara leader was getting impatient. Hurry, human. We wait long enough. Jake touched the center crystal of the star render. Immediately, the device began to glow brighter, and a new hologram appeared. This one showed a map of the galaxy, with several star systems marked in red. Target systems, one of the Kethmara warriors said with satisfaction. Now we can begin conquest again. The hologram also showed something else. Text appeared in the ancient Kethmara language, and Jake's heart sank as he realized what it meant. The device wasn't just a weapon. It was a test. The translation device Zara still carried began working on the new text. When it finished, the message was clear. Only those who prove themselves worthy through combat may claim the star render. Let the trial begin. Suddenly, energy barriers appeared around the chamber, trapping everyone inside. The Kethmara warriors looked surprised for the first time since Jake had seen them. Their leader spoke angrily in his own language, then turned to Jake. What did you do? I don't know, Jake said honestly. I just touched it like you told me to. The hologram changed, again showing new text. The translation came through quickly. Combat trial will determine who is worthy to wield the star render. All present must participate. Trial ends when only the worthy remain. The Kethmara leader looked at Jake and Zara, then at his own warriors. Slowly, a smile spread across his scarred face. Good, he said. We show these weak species what real warriors look like. But Jake wasn't looking at the Kethmara anymore. He was looking at Zara, who was staring at him with a mixture of terror and confusion. Run, human, she screamed, using the word the way. Her people always did when talking about humanity's supposed cowardice. Jake turned to face the Kethmara leader, who was already reaching for his weapons. Every instinct Zara expected him to have should have told him to try to escape, to find a way out of the chamber, to avoid the fight. Instead, Jake stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. I'm not running anywhere, he said, his voice calm and steady. This is my planet now, and you're not welcome here. The words hit Zara like a physical blow. Everything she thought she knew about humans, everything her people had told her about their nature, crumbled in that moment. Wasn't running. Wasn't trying to hide or escape or find a clever way out of the situation. He was choosing to fight. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he adjusted his mining equipment. The twin suns of Kepler 442b were setting, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. He had been working on this planet for 2 years now, and it still amazed him how different everything looked compared to Earth. Jake, are you ready to head into the deep caves today? Asked Zara, his alien partner. She was a Veltar, standing about 7 feet tall, with blue-gray skin and large, intelligent eyes. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for being peaceful and very smart. Sure thing, Zara. The readings from yesterday showed some interesting crystal formations down there. It'd be valuable, Jake replied, checking his tools one more time. The two of them had been working together for 8 months. Jake liked Zara. She was careful, thoughtful, and never rushed into anything dangerous. Her people, the Veltar, had been humanity's first alien friends when Earth made contact with the galaxy 3 years ago. They walked toward the cave entrance, their boots crunching on the strange purple sand that covered this part of the planet. The caves here were different from anything Jake had seen before. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. "My people have a saying," Zara said, as they entered the cave. "Only fools rush toward danger. But wise beings take time to think." Jake smiled. "On Earth, we say, look before you leap." Same idea, I guess. They moved deeper into the cave system, following their scanners toward the strongest crystal readings. The tunnels twisted and turned, going deeper underground. Jake had always been good at remembering paths, but these caves seemed to change. Somehow, passages that looked familiar suddenly led to new areas. "Jake, look at this," Zara called out, her voice echoing in the cavern ahead. Jake hurried forward and stopped in shock. They had found a huge underground chamber, bigger than a football stadium. That wasn't the amazing part. The walls were covered in carvings and symbols that clearly weren't natural. Someone had built this place. "These aren't Veltar markings," Zara said, her voice nervous. "And they're not human either. They're old, very old." Jake walked closer. To examine the carvings, they showed tall figures in some kind of armor, fighting with weapons that looked like they were made of pure energy. The style was different from anything he had seen before, more aggressive and sharp. "Do you recognize any of this?" Jake asked. Zara was quiet for a long moment, studying the walls. I think these might be Kethmera. Never heard of them. They're from our old stories. My people say they were warriors who conquered most of the galaxy a long time ago. But they disappeared thousands of years before we developed space travel. Most people think they were just legends." Jake's scanner started beeping rapidly. "There's something behind this wall, something big and made of metal." They found a section of the wall that looked different from the rest. When Jake pressed against it, it moved slightly. Together, they managed to push it open. Revealing a hidden room inside was a collection of objects that were clearly technology. But unlike anything either of them had ever seen, smooth, curved surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Crystals that hummed with energy. And in the center of it all, a tall pillar with a flat surface that looked like it might be some kind of control panel. "We should be careful," Zara warned. "If this really is Kethmera technology, it could be dangerous." But Jake was already walking toward the pillar. "It's been here for thousands of years. What's the worst that could happen?" As soon as he touched the control panel, the entire room lit up. Crystals began to glow brighter, and a low humming sound filled the air. Then, above the pillar, a hologram appeared. The figure in the hologram was tall and imposing, wearing armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal. It spoke in a language neither of them recognized, but the words sounded harsh and commanding. "My translation device is working on it," Zara said, pulling out a small machine. "But it will take a few minutes." That's when they heard the sound. From outside the cave was a deep, thrumming noise that seemed to make the ground shake. Jake had heard enough military transport ships to recognize the sound of large vessels landing. "That's not one of ours," he said. They crept back toward the cave entrance, staying in the shadows. What they saw outside made Zara gasp in fear. 3 ships had landed in the area where they had been working. But these weren't like any human or Veltar ships. They were sleek and predatory-looking, with surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. They looked dangerous even when sitting still. Figures were emerging from the ships. They were tall, much taller than humans, and they moved with a fluid grace that suggested incredible strength. Their armor was the same liquid metal style as the hologram, and it shifted and changed as they moved. "Kethmera," Zara whispered, her voice filled with terror. "They're real. They're actually real." The leader of the group was clearly a veteran warrior. His armor was more elaborate than the others, and he had scars visible on the parts of his face not covered by his helmet. He looked around the area with cold, calculating eyes, then pointed toward the cave entrance. "They know we're here," Jake said. Zara was shaking. "We have to run. We have to get to the communications array and warn everyone. My people have stories about the Kethmera. They're not just warriors, they're perfect killers. They conquered entire star systems. How long ago did they disappear? Jake asked, trying to stay calm. The stories say it was over 10,000 years ago. But Jake, you don't understand. My people became peaceful because of them. The Kethmera were so dangerous that the only way to survive was to never fight at all. The translation device in Zara's hand beeped softly. The message from the hologram was ready. What does it say? Jake asked. Zara read from the small screen, her voice shaking. It says the star render sleeps within these walls. Only those who prove themselves worthy through trial of combat may claim its power. Let the weak flee, and let the strong come forward to face judgment. Star render. It must be a weapon. Hey, we have to leave now. If the Kethmera are here for some ancient weapon, we can't let them get it. But it was too late. One of the Kethmera warriors had found the cave entrance and was making his way inside. In the dim light, Jake could see that the alien was even more impressive up close. His armor seemed alive, shifting and adapting to his movements. His weapons looked like they were made of pure energy. Zara grabbed Jake's arm. This way. There's another passage that leads to the surface. They moved as quietly as they could, but the Kethmera warrior was clearly an expert tracker. Jake could hear the alien's footsteps getting closer, moving with the confidence of a predator who knew his prey was trapped. They reached a narrow passage that led upward. But the Kethmera warrior appeared behind them before they could climb. He was huge, at least 8 feet tall, and his presence filled the tunnel. The warrior looked at them with what Jake could only describe as curiosity. He said something in his own language, but neither of them understood. Then he pointed at them and spoke again, this time in broken Veltar. You, ... found ... Sacred place, you ... answer. Zara's fear overwhelmed her. Every instinct her people had developed over thousands of years told her to run from this creature. She turned to Jake, her eyes wide with terror. Run, human, she screamed, using the term the way her people always did when talking about humanity's reputation for avoiding fights they couldn't win. The Kethmera leader stared at Jake for a long moment, clearly surprised by the human's words. In all his years of conquest, he had never met a species that didn't try to run when faced with Kethmera warriors. You choose to fight? The alien asked, his voice filled with curiosity rather than anger. You are small, weak, no weapons, no armor. Why do you not run like your kind always does? Jake looked around the chamber. The energy barriers were still active, trapping them all inside. 6 Kethmera warriors, each one bigger and stronger than him, each one armed with weapons that could cut through metal. But Jake had fought in worse situations before. Because running won't solve anything, Jake said. And because I'm tired of everyone thinking humans are cowards. Zara watched in shock as Jake began to move around the chamber, not away from the Kethmera, but studying the room like he was planning something. This wasn't how any species was supposed to behave when facing the galaxy's greatest warriors. The Kethmera leader, who had introduced himself as Vexai, seemed genuinely interested in Jake's behavior. You intrigue me, human, my long life. I have fought many species. All of them either begged for mercy or died quickly. You do neither. My name is Jake, he replied, picking up a piece of broken crystal from the floor. And where I come from, we don't give up easy. Vexai nodded with what looked like respect. Very well, Jake of the humans. I am Vexai, war leader of the Kethmera. If you wish to fight, I will give you the honor of single combat. When you are dead, we will take the weapon and continue our conquest. Sounds fair to me, Jake said, though Zara could see he was still looking around the room, planning something. The other Kethmera warriors formed a circle, giving their leader and the human space to fight. This was clearly a ritual they had. Performed many times before, Vexai drew his energy blade, a weapon that glowed with deadly light. You may use anything in this chamber as a weapon. I will not dishonor you by making this fight unfair. Jake smiled, and Zara saw something in that smile that made her shiver. It wasn't fear or desperation. It was confidence. Thanks. I appreciate that, Jake said. And then he threw the crystal shard directly at one of the hanging formations on the ceiling. The crystal hit its target perfectly, and a shower of sharp fragments rained down between Jake and Vexhai, the Kethmara. Leader had to jump back to avoid being hit, giving Jake time to grab more crystal shards and position himself near a wall.
Clever,
Vexi said with approval. He charged forward, his blade cutting through the falling crystals like they were nothing. But Jake wasn't where Vexhai expected him to be. He had rolled to the side and was now behind a large piece of the star render machinery. Vexhai's blade struck the machine, and energy sparked everywhere. The feedback made him stagger back, and Jake used that moment to strike. He didn't try to attack the alien directly. Instead, he kicked at Vexhai's leg. Right at the joint where his armor was weakest, the Kethmara warrior stumbled, but didn't fall. He swung his blade at Jake, who barely managed to roll away. The energy weapon cut through the stone floor like it was paper. You fight like no species I have ever seen, Vexhai said, breathing hard. Most warriors try to match my strength. You use my strength against me? Jake was moving constantly, never staying in one place for more than a few seconds. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ancient machinery and used it to block Vexhai's next attack. The pipe melted from the energy blade's heat, but it gave Jake enough time to strike again. This time he aimed for Vexhai's weapon hand, hitting the alien's wrist with a piece of crystal. The Kethmara leader's grip loosened for just a moment, and Jake managed to knock the energy blade away, but Vexhai was far from defeated. He grabbed Jake with his bare hands, lifting the human off the ground. His strength was incredible, and Jake could feel his ribs creaking under the pressure. Now you die, brave human, Vexhai said. But Jake had been ready for this too. Like he had grabbed a handful of crystal dust when he rolled on the ground, and now he threw it directly into Vexhai's eyes. The alien roared in pain and surprise, dropping Jake and clawing at his face. Jake didn't waste the opportunity. Grabbed Vex's fallen energy blade and pointed it at the alien's throat. But instead of killing him, Jake stepped back. I could kill you now, Jake said, but I won't. This fight isn't about killing. It's about proving something. Vexhai wiped the crystal dust from his eyes and stared at Jake with amazement. You spare me? Why? 'Cause I'm not a killer by choice. I'm a survivor by necessity. Other Kethmara warriors were talking among themselves in their own language. They sounded excited and confused at the same time. Zara could see that Jake's fighting style had shaken them. It expected a quick victory, not this strange combat that mixed strategy, creativity, mercy. Vexhai stood up slowly, studying Jake with new eyes. Tell me, human Jake, where did you learn to fight like this? Earth, Jake said simply. My home planet. Your world must be full of great warriors to produce such skill. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Not warriors, survivors. Earth isn't like other planets. Everything there is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the plants. Humans didn't become strong by choice. We became strong because we had to. Zara listened to Jake's words with growing understanding. She had studied human history as part of her job, but she had never thought about what it really meant. Earth was classified as a death world, but she had always assumed that was just a technical term. You see, Jake continued, other species evolved on planets that were safe. They developed intelligence and technology in peaceful environments. Humans evolved on a world that was actively hostile. We had to learn to adapt or die. Vexhai was nodding slowly. This explains much. You do not fight with honor or tradition. You fight to survive. Exactly. That's why everyone thinks we're cowards. We don't fight fair. We don't follow rules. We use whatever works. We can't win a fight. We run away and come back later with better weapons or more friends. One of the other Kethmara warriors said something to Vexhai in their language. The war leader nodded and looked back at Jake. My warriors say you fight like a true predator. It's like something that has never known safety. It's because we haven't. Jake said, even now, with all our technology and space travel, humans still die from things that wouldn't hurt any other species. We're not the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest, but we're the most stubborn. Vexhai walked closer to Jake. You have earned something very rare. Human. You've earned the respect of the Kethmara. But tell me, why do you fight so hard for this planet? It is not even your birth world. Jake looked around the chamber, at the ancient machinery and the crystal formations. Then he looked at Zara, who was watching him with wonder and fear. "'Cause this is what humans do," he said. "We find new places, we make them home, and then we defend them. We've been doing it for thousands of years on Earth, moving from continent to continent, adapting to new environments. Now, we're doing it among the stars, and you will never stop. Never. That's what makes us human. We don't know how to give up." HFY was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone in the chamber. He knelt down on one knee in front of Jake. "I declare you Kethter," he said formally, "one who fights with honor despite impossible odds. You have shown us something we have not seen in 10,000 years. "What's that?" Jake asked. "A species worthy of our respect." HFY rose from his kneeling position, still studying Jake with curiosity. The other Kethmera warriors were talking among themselves, clearly amazed by what they had just witnessed. "You interest me greatly, Jake of Earth," HFY said. "All our conquests? We have never met a species that fights like you do. Tell me more about this death world that made you." Jake sat down on a piece of broken machinery, suddenly feeling very tired. The fight had taken more out of him than he wanted to admit. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. How does a world create warriors who fight without weapons? Who use cleverness instead of strength?" Zara moved closer, wanting to hear this too. She had always wondered why humans seemed so different from every other species in the galaxy. "Earth isn't like other planets," Jake began. "When your people or Zara's people evolved, your worlds were mostly safe. You had to worry about finding food and shelter, but the planet itself wasn't trying to kill you every day, and Earth was different," asked one of the other Kethmera warriors. "Very different. Earth has weather that can freeze you solid or burn you alive. It has storms that can destroy entire cities, it has diseases that kill without warning, and the animals." Jake shook his head. "Earth has predators that make your warriors look." Gentle HFY sat down across from Jake. "Tell us about these predators." "We had creatures called saber-toothed cats with teeth longer than your fingers, bears that could stand 12 feet tall and crush bones with their bare hands, wolves that hunted in packs and could track prey for hundreds of miles." Zara was listening with growing amazement. "But humans survived all of this. Not just survived, we became the apex predators. We hunted everything else into extinction or drove them away from our territories." "How?" HFY asked. "You have no claws, no fangs, no natural armor?" Jake smiled grimly. "We didn't need them. We had something better. We had endurance and intelligence. Working together? Do you know what persistence hunting is?" The aliens shook their heads. "It's when you chase an animal until it's too tired to run anymore. Most predators are faster than humans for short distances, but humans can run for hours without stopping. We would track an animal, chase it until it was exhausted, then kill it when it couldn't fight back. That seems..." HFY paused, searching for the right word. "Cruel, maybe, but it worked. Humans spread across the entire planet using that technique. We didn't just adapt to one environment like most species. We learned to live everywhere. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense forests, high mountains. If there was a place on Earth, humans found a way to survive there." Jake stood up and walked toward the star-rendered device. But the worst part wasn't the animals or the weather. It was other humans. "Your own species?" Zara asked, shocked. "Humans have been fighting wars for our entire history, not just small conflicts, but massive wars that lasted for years or decades. We developed weapons and tactics that could kill thousands of people at once. We learned to coordinate armies of millions." HFY was nodding with understanding. "This explains your fighting style. You have been warriors your entire evolutionary history." "Not warriors," Jake corrected. "Survivors. There's a difference. Warriors fight for honor or glory or conquest. Survivors fight because they have to, because the alternative is death." Jake touched one of the control panels on the star render, and new holograms appeared. These showed scenes from human history, battles, natural disasters, cities being built. and destroyed. "Look at this," he said, pointing to one image. "This is from a war that happened less than 100 years ago. Humans fighting other humans with weapons that could level entire cities. Over 50 million people died." The Kethmera warriors studied the images with professional interest. "Your weapons are primitive, but effective," one of them said. "Those are our old weapons. The new ones are much worse. Humans have bombs that can destroy entire planets. We've created diseases that could kill every living thing in a star system. We've built machines that think faster than any biological brain. And yet you came to the stars in peace," Vexhai observed. Jake laughed bitterly. "Not really. We came to the stars because we were running out of room to fight on Earth when we met other species. We realized we were the only ones who had spent our entire history at war. Everyone else thought we were primitive and violent." "So you pretended to be peaceful?" Zara asked. "We tried to be peaceful. Most humans want to live quietly and raise families and build things. But that doesn't mean we've forgotten how to fight. It just means we choose not to unless we have to." Vexhai stood up and walked around the chamber, thinking, "This changes everything we thought we knew about humans. The galaxy sees you as weak because you avoid conflicts." "We avoid conflicts, we don't need to fight," Jake corrected. "But when something threatens our homes or our families, we become something else entirely." "What do you become?" asked one of the warriors. Jake looked directly at Vexhai. "We become what we've always been. It's the species that survived everything Earth could throw at us. It's the species that turned a death world into a garden. It's the species that never learned how to give up." The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then Vexhai spoke again. "You said this mining colony is your home now?" "It is. But you were not born here. Why do you defend it so fiercely?" Jake walked over to where Zara was standing, because that's what humans do. We explore, we settle, we build communities. This colony has human families, human children. They're counting on people like me to keep them safe. Even though you barely know them, doesn't matter. They're human, and this is human territory now. It makes them my responsibility. Vexhai exchanged looks with his warriors. They were speaking in their own language again, but Jake could tell. They were impressed. "You would fight all of us to defend strangers?" Vexhai asked. "If I had to, yes, even knowing you would lose." Jake shrugged. "Losing doesn't matter. What matters is making the cost high enough that the next group of attackers thinks twice before trying. And if there is no next group, if you die here for nothing, then at least I die as a human. We don't surrender. We don't run when our backs are against the wall. We fight until we can't fight anymore, and then we fight some more." Zara was staring at Jake like she had never seen him before. Everything her people believed about humans was wrong. They weren't cowards who ran from fights. They were predators who chose their battles carefully. "Jake," she said quietly, "why didn't your people ever tell us this? Why let everyone think humans were weak because we hoped we could be better than what we were on Earth? We wanted to be the peaceful species everyone expected us to be. But some things never change." Vexhai nodded slowly. "Yes, some things never change. The Kethmera learned this long ago. We tried to become peaceful after we conquered everything. But a warrior species cannot simply stop being warriors." "That why you went into stasis? Because you ran out of things to fight?" "Partly. We became too powerful. Nothing could challenge us anymore. Without challenges, we began to grow weak and soft. So we decided to sleep until the galaxy produced something worthy of our attention." Jake looked around at the ancient chamber. "And now you're awake." "Yes, because we found something we have been waiting for. A species that understands what it means to be forged by conflict. A species that fights not for glory, but for survival." Walked back to Jake and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have shown us that humans are not the weak cowards the galaxy believes them to be. You are something far more dangerous." "What's that?" "You are survivors who learn to love." The words hung in the air like a challenge. "Survivors who learn to love." Jake wasn't sure what Vexhai meant by that, but something in the alien's tone suggested it was important. "I don't understand," Jake said. Vexhai gestured to his warriors, and they formed a circle around the star render device. Most warrior species love only conflict. They fight because fighting is all they know. But humans are different. You fight to protect things you care about. That's what any species would do. No, Vexai said firmly. Most species fight to prove they are strong or to take what belongs to others. You fight to keep what you have built together, Jake thought. About the mining colony above them, families who had come here looking for a better life, the children who played in the artificial gardens while their parents worked the crystal mines, the small community that had grown from nothing into something worth protecting. Maybe you're right, he admitted. The energy barriers around the chamber suddenly flickered and disappeared. The star render device began to glow brighter, and new holograms appeared. These ones showed star maps and what looked like coordinates. Trial is complete, announced a voice from the ancient machine. It spoke in perfect human English now, as if it had been learning from their conversation. The star render has found those worthy to claim it. Vexai looked surprised. We have not finished fighting? The trial was never about fighting to the death, the voice explained. It was about proving worth through understanding. The Kethmera have found a species that shares their strength. The humans have found a species that shares their determination. Both are worthy. Jake stared at the glowing device. You mean we both passed the test? The star render was created not as a weapon of destruction, but as a weapon of protection. It was meant for those who fight not to conquer, but to defend what they love. The device began to change shape, splitting into two smaller devices. One floated toward Vexai, and the other moved toward Jake. Two keys to one weapon, the voice continued. Neither species can use it alone. Both must agree before the star render will activate. This ensures it can never be used for conquest, only for protection. Vexai caught his key and studied it. Carefully, clever. The ancient Kethmara knew that even warriors need restraint. Jake took his key, feeling the weight of responsibility it represented. So what happens now? Now you both return to your people, the voice said. The galaxy is about to change. Forces are awakening that will threaten all life. When that time comes, the Kethmera and the humans must stand together. What kind of forces? Zara asked. She had been quiet during most of the conversation, but now she looked worried. The holograms changed again, showing images that made everyone in the chamber go cold. Ships unlike anything they had ever seen, made of what looked like living metal. Creatures that seemed to be part machine and part something else entirely. The Devourers, Vexai said, his voice filled with old fear. We thought they were destroyed.
What?
Are Devourers? Jake asked. An ancient enemy, Vexai explained. They consume entire worlds, turning all life into more of themselves. The last time they appeared, it took every species in the galaxy working together to stop them. That was why the Kethmera became warriors in the first place. The voice from the star render spoke again. They return in 1 year. This time, they are stronger and more organized. Only species that understand both war and peace can hope to defeat them. Jake looked at his key, then at Vexai. So we're partners now. It would seem so.
Vexai
Actually smiled, something Jake hadn't thought. The alien could do. Admit, I am curious to see what humans and Kethmara can accomplish together. The trials are complete, the voice announced. You may leave this place. But remember, the weapons you carry are not just tools of war. They are symbols of trust between species. The chamber began to shake and cracks appeared in the ceiling. The ancient structure was finally giving way after thousands of years. We need to get out of here, Jake said. They ran through the collapsing tunnels, with crystal formations falling around them. Vexai's warriors moved with fluid grace, but Jake noticed they stayed close to him and Zara. Making sure the humans kept up, they burst out of the cave just as it collapsed completely behind them. The Kethmera ships were still waiting outside, but now they looked less threatening somehow. What will you tell your people? Vexai asked Jake. The truth? That humans aren't the weaklings everyone thought we were, and that we've found allies who understand what it means to fight for something worth protecting? And what will you tell your people? Jake asked Vexai. That our long sleep is over, that we have found a species worthy of our respect, not that the greatest battles still lie ahead. Zara looked between the human and the Kethmara leader. What about the other species? The Veltar, the Zentari, all the peaceful races? Oh, well, they react when they learn the truth about humans. Jake and Vexai exchanged looks. They both knew the answer to that question. They'll be scared, Jake said. They'll think we've been lying to them all along. Fear can be useful, Vexai said, but respect is better. We will help them understand that humans are not their enemies. And if they don't understand, Vexai's smile became sharper. Then they will learn quickly when the Devourers arrive. Nothing teaches cooperation like a common enemy. Jake looked up at the alien ships, then back at the collapsed cave. Everything had changed in the space of a few hours. Humanity was no longer seen as the weak newcomers to galactic civilization. They were predators, survivors, warriors who had been hiding their true nature. One more question, Jake said to Vexi. Why did your people really go into stasis? You said it was because you ran out of things to fight, but that's not the whole truth, is it? Vexai was quiet for a long moment. No, it is not. We went into stasis because we were becoming monsters. When you have no one left to fight, you begin to fight each other. We were destroying ourselves, and now we have found something better than endless war. We have found a purpose worth fighting. 4. And we have found allies who understand that the greatest strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect. Jake extended his hand to Vexai. It was a human gesture, but the aliens seemed to understand its meaning. They shook hands while Zara watched in amazement. Partners? Jake asked. Partners, Vexai confirmed, above them. The stars began to shine brighter as night fell on Kepler 4 for 2b. Somewhere in that vast darkness, an ancient enemy was stirring. But for the first time in galactic history, two species that truly understood war were preparing to stand together. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans stopped pretending to be peaceful, and the universe would never be the same.